Hello. Why is orientation locked? I don't know. It's not supposed to be. Save highlight. This is interesting. At least 1 minute of video needs to start. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining, for those of you who are here. So this is going to be a casual conversation. As you saw in the in my screen, right? We're going to talk about forgiveness. I think this is something, let me know too, if you guys are seeing, which direction y'all are seeing me, because I'm actually supposed to be the other way, but it looks like YouTube does not want me to be that way. So we're going to work with what we have. I wanted to talk about forgiveness, and it's a question that comes up a lot because I have been, good evening to Nelly. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for joining in. I'm feeling a little warm for some reason. But I want to talk about forgiveness. So for those who don't know me, and I'm sure because you are here because you do know me, I'm Aziza Kibibi. Hey, hey, hey. I didn't get to do my usual intro since I was having some camera issues. But hi, night nurse Gail. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Llewellyn. Thank you. That name, I'm always drawn to that name, Llewellyn, because there is a series of books that I love to read by Llewellyn Press. So hello. Hello, Vitiful. Thank you for joining. Harmless Honestly. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for joining. So I want to kind of just jump right into it. It's Tennille. Tennille. Okay. All right. Thank you for the correction. I want to wait a little bit for more people to join. But so in the meantime, thank you for subscribing if you are subscribed. And if you haven't already, make sure you definitely do that. Because not only to my YouTube channel, but also to my website, azizakabibi.com, because it keeps you updated on things that are going on. And of course, when I do live feeds, live streams here on YouTube and on TikTok and on Instagram, I usually do a blast out through my newsletter for my website. So if you are here from there, go down into the comments, give a thumbs up. If you are here from Instagram, then let's see, put a smiley face in the comments. That would be great. I think I also do have, so this is just a little bit of housekeeping, but I do have the what do they call them things? Those little gifts, the badges. I do have the badges on. So if you are so willing to help support my channel and the work that I do, definitely do that. And, contribute. It all goes towards helping survivors of abuse and creating programs and doing the research. And, allowing me to make videos and things to encourage and raise awareness. So I want to talk about forgiveness today because I'm constantly faced with questions. People always ask me, well, Aziza, considering everything that happened to you, not only by your father, right, from the abuse that I suffered from my father, but also what I went through with my mom because she enabled my dad, and there was her own contribution to the toxic environment that I grew up in. And even after escaping, trying to reestablish a relationship with her, get some form of normalcy, some sense of normalcy, some type of functioning, positive mother-daughter relationship. There was challenges, and I think over time it just got to the point where it started to affect my children. as well. Her perspective and the same attitudes that she had started to affect my children and just affects my life in general. So I literally love her from afar. But not only that, the things that I went through are clearly out of the ordinary. The abuses that I suffered, well, no. I'm going to change that. And I have a sneeze, y'all. It's like building up in my head right now. But the statistics show that 1 in 4 women are molested before they turn 18, and 1 in 6 boys are molested before they turn 18. So that issue, the abuses and the exploitation of children and of women and people in vulnerable groups is rampant. It is an epidemic. It is. But when we talk about a situation like mine, where I was isolated from society, homeschooled, wasn't allowed to speak to anybody outside of the family, those situations are a little more rare or a little less common. I hear people point out the story of the girl in the basement, where they make a comparison about the girl in the basement where the father locked his daughter in the basement and the mother, so-called, quote unquote, did not know where the daughter was. And at different times, since she was having children by her father, the father would just show up with a child for the mother to raise. Like, I think that's kind of, I think that the mother was complacent in a way, not that she just didn't know. But anyway, so a lot of people compare my story with that story. And then there is the Wesson story, the man known as the LA vampire, where he had multiple women and he started molesting and raping his daughters, and they had children, and eventually he had brainwashed everybody to the point where he taught the eldest, or the eldest son, to kill everybody if authorities were to ever come in. And it's suspected that that did actually happen. So while, I think his name was Marcus Wesson, while he went to jail for the crime, how the story is told is that him and the oldest son came out and everybody in the house was dead. So it's like, well, there's a question that whether the son killed under the father's instruction, or the father actually, harmed the family in that way, fatally harmed the family. So there are these extreme cases, yes, that are similar to mine, and I have been blessed enough to have escaped my situation and maintain some form of mental health and sense of reality, because I have sought out some of the survivors from those stories, and they are not willing to speak to the public. They are not, they're not speaking out to the capacity that I am. Then there are the Browns. The Browns are a musical family who were being molested by their father. They were homeschooled as well. That's why people make the association of being homeschooled, and that I was homeschooled, and how that tends to create an environment where the parents can basically run amok and do whatever they do and whatever they want to do, and also brainwash the children into like these strict belief systems, which is what happened to me. So yes, I was strong enough in my head, mentally, spiritually, to, once I got out of that situation, make a conscious decision to deprogram myself, because essentially that's what my father did. He programmed us. So I was able to escape, help support my family, help us to be, and when I say my family, I mean my brothers and sisters, my mom, try to find a sense of normalcy among us as a family, and also raise my own children and create my own family and live a fulfilling life, which I am still working on. But with all of that, a lot of people do ask, being that the things that I've experienced are so extreme, well, Aziza, How was you able to forgive? Have you forgiven? And if you have forgiven, how did you even get to that place? So yes, I say all of that other stuff to say, I wanted to do a video about forgiveness pertaining to my situation, my out of the ordinary situation, but also pertaining to some things that some people may say regular every day. For instance, my sisters, two of my sisters, slept with my husband. So I have been, I don't want to say is that victim? Would you say that if your partner, if your spouse cheats on you, that you are a victim of adultery? I don't know. I feel like the term victim should be used for things that are not to diminish the feelings of betrayal and sense of mistrust that comes along with someone that you love cheating on you when you have made a pact to be each other's only sexual partners. But I feel like, there's a little more dramatic stuff that the term victim, you can be like a victim of a murder or a victim of a robbery, like things that are more, I guess, physically impactful when people are dealing with in relationships, adultery and being faithful and things on a more regular basis. Like it doesn't break you completely. Anyway, in my situation, it was not just my husband. Of course, yeah, my husband violated our commitment to each other as two people in a monogamous relationship. But then there was dealing with the betrayal that I felt from my sisters, who I thought we had our own pact and bond. Like, we don't mess with each other's men, basically, especially coming through from a life where we were forced to have sexual interaction with the same man. I mean, I grew up in a polygamous family. My father had multiple women. He was only married to my mom. He was only legally married to my mom, but he did call other women his wives. At one point, he called me that as well when he would introduce me to people on the outside, the celebrities that he worked with. I was his wife. That's what he titled me. In my mind, and I'm going to go ahead and answer a question from now, I always saw him as my father. It didn't matter what I called him. I always saw him as my father. So to then have this situation where we are free to make our own choices, and my sisters chose to betray me in that way. My husband chose to betray me in that way. No one forced them to. No one convinced them to. They did not make a decision under any kind of duress or gun to their head. So, here I am now in this, what I would consider a more regular or normal dilemma. And how do you forgive that? Because anything else that happened while being held captive by my father, I could dismiss because we were in a really bad situation. I am understanding of that. But now here we are out in the world, free to make our own decisions. I did not understand why would this decision be the one that my sisters and my husband made. So I'm going to take a break for a second and go to the comments because I know you guys have been... Okay, here we go. Who are the Browns? Okay, I'm going to go through from the top, everyone. Hello. First, let me say good evening to everybody who only recently joined. So peace and blessings, Harmony from Raleigh. All right. Everyone on the check-in. Good morning. Wow. Good evening, everyone. How are you? So the Browns are a family. Look them up. They're a family of child prodigies who play the piano. And it's, I believe, 3 girls and 1 boy, or 2 girls and 1 boy. And all of the girls were being abused by their father. Bart Tech, who are the Browns? Family who's the... Okay. You guys are taking care of each other. Thank you. Yeah, we don't have to, we don't have to remain a victim, but a victim in the sense that you didn't have control of. Okay, got you. So Okay, Tennille. Back to this idea of forgiveness. You're right. I could have chosen to love them from afar, and essentially that's what I did with my mom. But I chose not to. I decided to continue to maintain a relationship with them because I did feel that maybe they were still being affected from the lifestyle that we grew up in, from you can't even call it lifestyle, from the toxic environment that we grew up in. I kind of gave them that excuse, even though they didn't say like, oh, well, I thought that this was, none of that even came up. In fact, one of my sisters, she's not even like spoken about it. But I decided to go ahead and move forward because I felt that our life had been so challenging, and we had spent so much time suffering and being pit against each other and being basically in survival mode, right? My father had created an environment of survival of the fittest. So when this happened, I felt like rather than say that in our new life of growing independently, growing and learning and loving and appreciating and enjoying and experiencing independently and freely, I did not want to waste the time that I had left with the rest of my families on something like that. So I made a decision to forgive. So now, forgiveness. Do the people really deserve your forgiveness? No. In short, no. A person that has harmed you or that has done wrong to you, who you have decided to forgive. And I do feel that when you have survived trauma at the hands of someone else, for your own healing, it is a step. It's like a mechanism that you take to be able to move past, to continue to not allow this incident that hurt you hold you back from the potential and that you have in living your life how you want to live it. So I see forgiveness really, as I said before, a mechanism, a tool, something to use to take a next step in your journey of healing. I saw a question pop up. Did I forgive my father? Yes, I did. And interestingly enough, I forgave my father quicker than I forgave my mom. And I think that was because as a mother myself and as a woman, I know that there is nothing that I would not have done to protect my children. So even though I actively decided to establish a relationship with my mother, to love her, to interact with her, to include her in the experience of my life that was freedom, joy. I mean, me and my mom did everything together. Not to mention the fact, and I'm going to be honest, when you have experienced trauma with somebody, there is trauma bonding. If you've never heard of it, please look it up. I will try to give a brief summary. So trauma bonding is when two or more people can relate to an experience, can relate to each other, or connect through a harmful experience because, you was not alone in that trauma. And I mean, as a child, I was for a good portion. But to a certain degree, it's like you've been through the struggle together. And I think I'd like to call it struggle bonding more because I see, when you have a team or you have your partner and you're like, let's just say your partner, you can't make the rent, and then suddenly all the work that you have been putting into a business or an idea finally comes to fruition and you're reaping the rewards. There is nothing. It's such an amazing feeling to have toiled and worked on something and have someone to share that with, because you can look back and think about the times when it was difficult and you tend to encourage each other. And so that's more like struggle bonding. So with trauma bonding, it's very similar, because even though my mother was complicit and she was in a position that she could have done something, even though she felt like that she wasn't, she was still there, right? She was still there. And she also was the target of my father's anger on many occasions. So that part, it's like there is this understanding. There's this one person in the head of the household who is committing all of the who is creating all the toxicity, who is causing all of the harm, and the rest of us psychologically was, the people beneath him. And that created a trauma bond. So yes, when we escaped, I had no one else that I could relate to other than my mom and my sisters, because they were there for everything, for most of the things that I went through. They were there to say that, yes, this man was evil. Yes, this man did some really sick things. Yes, I remember that time. So when we had our moments of just getting together and appreciating how far we had come when we escaped him, it was my mom that I did that with. It was my sisters who I did that with. So even when my sisters cheated with my husband and I found out, it was like there was this thing that I felt like I did not want to lose that I had with them, because essentially, as far as my life growing up, they were there. They were part of my life growing up. So I did make the decision to forgive them, because my relationship to them, for me, my relationship with them was more important. Now, in me giving advice to other women that have a difficult time, or anyone that has a difficult time in forgiving, I say this. First of all, I'm not going to convince anybody to do what they don't want to do. I think that when you have been affected negatively to the point where it has broken down, whether it be your sense of self-worth, or it has had an impact on how you look at yourself and how you look at yourself as it relates to the world and other people, then forgiveness is a necessary step. It is. Now, that doesn't mean that once you forgive that it's easy to just maintain. In my experience, I had to forgive multiple times. Like, I'd forgiven my mom for a general, and say, hey, yeah, mommy, I know that, you allowed this to happen. And that time I asked you for us to run away, you decided not to, and you did, get me in trouble plenty of times. And you did like lie on me for things like it, like all of this stuff. But there were things that over time I kind of forgot. And then I would get angry again. And it's like, I could say, okay, well, I'm going to put that aside. That was then, and this is now. And for me, trying to create a normal life was more important than my anger that I had, my anger and disappointment. That's really what it was. My disappointment in how she didn't do anything, and how she enabled a lot of the stuff just by being a rubber stamper for a lot of the things that my father did. So I decided that it was more important for me to have a normal relationship with her, to build a normal relationship with her. And I was not going to allow my feelings about everything else that I thought she should have done, and my expectations of her and who I thought that she should have been as far as a woman and a mother in my life, to affect this relationship that I wanted. And for me, that was a sense of forgiveness. I had to say, well, you know what? There's nothing I could do about that now. I'm no longer holding you responsible for how I feel about it. And I'm going to change how I feel about it and focus on something else. Now, over time, there were other things that, as someone who had been living in a very toxic and traumatic experience and a toxic environment and lived a traumatic life, of course, there are just some things that it's just easier to deal with that I had forgotten, and they would come up. I would be in a situation with my mom, and it would come up, and it would remind me about, hey, a specific time that, oh yeah, I remember when she said so-and-so to daddy, and then his reaction was that he was harsher that night, or he was, and y'all, I'm watching my words here because YouTube has been on me because of the topic that I speak on. So, he was harder on me that night, or he was just more violent, or he punched me or choked me during that time. Like, there were things that I saw, what I considered the old her or the past her. And yes, that rage came back and that disappointment came back. And then I had to make a conscious decision again to first work through it, because that's one thing that is important. During the process of forgiveness, you have to allow yourself to feel what it is. You have to allow yourself to feel the pain and the hurt, and you have to acknowledge, because you are important. When it comes down to it, all of this is because of you. If you have been through something traumatic, you have been hurt from someone else, the healing process is about you and no one else. It's not about them. It's not about who you're forgiving. So if forgiving is a step in living your best life or towards your healing journey, and it's a step further along in your healing journey, then you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for them. So in this situation, but you have to acknowledge the hurt and the pain that you feel. And that's what I did. I had to acknowledge the fact that I was hurt, that I was pissed, that she annoyed me. And I mean, I'm a communicator, and I had learned that holding things in was not helping me at all, and it hadn't helped me. And because I spent so much time keeping a secret, and it would manifest physically through illnesses, my asthma would be triggered, I'd get sick with allergies, I'd break out in eczema rashes. Like, y'all, stress and anger and hate, that stuff manifests in your body. So because I know that, and I have felt it and been through it for a huge part of my childhood, I have decided, I communicate. Anytime something's bothering me, somebody pisses me off, I let them know. If there's somebody important in my life. If there's somebody important in my life, because the random person walking down the street, I don't care, whatever. But someone that's important in my life or close to me, I feel like I need to let them know what they did and how what they did hurt me or how it bothered me. And that is a part of acknowledging the fact that I feel a certain way about what they did to me. So I'm not saying forgiveness is not just about, ignoring the pain, ignoring the hurt, and moving on silently. That's not what it's about. Forgiveness is really about acknowledging what the person did and then making a decision to leave them with it. Leave them with having to deal with the karmic repercussions and the dharmic repercussions of their negative actions, and you just letting go of the responsibility. So again, it does not mean they deserve it. Trust. It does not. I've forgiven some people that definitely did not deserve my forgiveness, but again, it's not about them. It's about you and about me. So let's see what y'all been saying down here. I see questions. Llewellyn, Yes, forgiveness is more about you. You are echoing what I'm saying. Did you say it before me? I didn't see you. What is the question? I see Raja and Jay's TV. Who had a question? I just wish my father would come forward and say he is sorry. He's like my biggest nightmare at night. Okay, so Rajay and Jay's TV. I want to respond to that. But there are so many comments. I want to respond to that as far as the nightmares. How can you sexually be attracted to? Yeah, I don't understand that. It's just weird. It's just weird. And did you know that there are groups of people that are actually trying to make it akin to being homosexual, like being attracted to a minor is just a sexual preference choice and should be normalized. It's anyway. Pen bar, this is what needs to take place. We need to let it out, then let it go. True. Money, you attracted your messages. What was the catalyst for your sisters and mom going to the police about your dad? There was none. No catalyst. It was a conversation that you speaking like it was okay. HS155. You know what? Would he ever share your research on... Yes, I will. I will. In fact, please, honey, I am working on a journal article now, studying, well, the information I got so far, which has been from survivors, not necessarily abusers. I've not spoken directly to any, but yes, when I do get to the point that I speak to Aswad Ayinde while he is in prison, as a study, I am definitely sharing. I will be compiling a whole report and sharing it. I don't speak like it's normal. That other person who commented, I don't think I speak like it's normal. I think that I speak like it does. I think I speak like a person who is forgiven a lot. And I think that I could disconnect myself. No, let me not say that. I'm not hurt anymore. And the thing is, in my life now, there are still things manifesting from my father's actions. There are still things, like financially. If you guys haven't read it, please ignore my cat and my neighbors. But if you haven't watched it yet, I did a video on the financial abuses that my father committed against me and how I had to work through that, dealing with my credit score and collections and all that other stuff. So things are still coming up. Things are still coming up, but what is different is that now I have the power to actually impact it. Whether it be only a little bit, it doesn't matter. Like, I have the power and the agency to now actually go and call and talk to, because during that point I couldn't. And if I was ever on the phone, either him, my brother, or my mom literally had to be sitting there next to me. Even for his business, for his music video directing business, I was responsible for booking talent and managing, doing office management work, booking the airlines for the celebrities. Like, he did one video that was a Michael Bivins Productions, and I had to set up the airlines and the hotel and everything for Michael Bivins and his crew. But I was not allowed to just sit there and be on the phone like any other person would. Someone had to be sitting there with me to make sure that I did not try to say anything against my dad or reach out for help in any way. So I was always monitored, or it had to be done in front of him. So I was always monitored. So now, something as simple as having a problem or having to solve a challenge that I could just pick up the phone of my own choosing without having anybody monitor me, or me being afraid that I'm going to say the wrong thing and it's going to, cause me to be punched in my face, is, you just don't know. It's such a relief. It's such a relief. So I don't talk about it like it's normal. I don't talk about it like it's regular. I talk about it like I have grown past it. I talk about it like I am on a mission, which I am. I am on a mission because I know there are still millions and millions of people that are still struggling and still in their situations and are still being taken advantage of and being treated horribly. Like, that's happening every single day, every single minute. There are babies. I mean, if I don't even want to say it just in case it triggers anybody, but the horrors in my work that I have read about and that I have learned about, and that videos that I have sat through and professionals that I have spoken to, it's beyond me. It's not, these things aren't committed by humans. They can't be. Because if they were, then humans would be damn near demons, because this stuff is just really, really sick and disturbing. So I am extremely motivated as someone who has been traumatized and has worked on it to the point that I can not only talk about it publicly, but I can answer questions from the public, even though they may come across offensive. Even though, I mean, a question like that, why do you talk about it normally? I think that's very judgmental, but I'm going to meet your judgment and call it, raise it, whatever you call it, with grace and understanding and a little bit of education, to hopefully to the point that, you know, you'll change your thinking, or at least your approach to someone that has basically been through hell and back. So let's see. Would you say I manifested social problems as a result that would have been picked up by others? Or do you think, darn, these things disappear so fast, y'all. Y'all be writing in whole, okay. Would you ever share your research? Answered that. Exactly right, Aziza. Is that a kid cat or a cat? That's my cat. That's Krishna whining. I know, he sounds like a baby. What would you say about women who abuse men? The same thing. I think women who abuse men clearly has issues as well. Well, okay, men or boys? That's a question. So, pen bar. Women who abuse boys have the same issues, in my opinion, that men who abuse girls or boys. Their complete disregard for the innocence of a child, no matter what the sex, for their own sexual gratification is demented. It's just demented. It's selfish. It's self-serving. It's narcissistic. To fulfill your own pleasures by harming someone else, to me, is such a just lower level of being. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't, or what sex you subscribe to. It's just to take advantage of someone. And children trust adults for the most part. That's why we have to teach children not to trust adults when we say stranger danger, don't talk to some people that you don't know, you know, things like that. We have to teach that to children, because if we did it, I've raised 5 children, and each one of them, I had to stop. My youngest, Uriel, 2 years old, he was walking, he was going up to complete strangers to say hello, because that innocence and that sense of not knowing what danger is, it's just like, they're complete, pure canvases. And as parents, we have to protect them from the world. So to take advantage of their purity, to me, is just, it's just sick. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you take advantage of a child's innocence and their vulnerability and their gullibility, when you could go and, you know, get your rocks off with a grown person who actually has a choice and is not so easily swayed or manipulated, then you're weak. When it comes down to it, then you're weak and you need some serious help. Boys, then men. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence is both ways. it's an abuse of power over another person. And if you have power of another person, which oftentimes if you are in an intimate relationship with somebody, if you are in love with somebody or somebody loves you and you use that against them in an abusive manner, in a way that harms them, then it's, and I've seen it. I've seen women who are abusive to men. And it's even more challenging for men because they are, according to society, supposed to be the man. They are the masculine. They're not supposed to allow a woman to hit on them or abuse them in other way, mentally, physically, verbally. And I think that women who then, you know, take advantage of that because they know, I've witnessed a woman, you know, when they point in a man's head and it's almost like they know that as far as our culture is concerned now, I mean, there was a time that it wasn't, but now domestic violence, intimate partner violence is something that is looked down on. Then it's more like it's antagonizing. And a woman then knows, I mean, clearly she must be damaged in some way, in my opinion. But then a woman knows that, well, the man is not going to hit or fight back because if she calls the cops, they're going to think that he did something because now of what our climate about intimate partner violence is right now. But then, and this is why I love to study and I love to talk to people. How about same-sex relationships? So can two women who are in a relationship beat on each other and it not be considered domestic abuse? Of course, it's considered domestic abuse because domestic abuse is about the abuse of power. One person having and abusing their power over another person. That's what domestic abuse is about. It's about power. So whether you are the male in this situation, whether you are the female in this situation, whether you are the woman who is the more masculine or dominating, or you are the woman who isn't, but like, okay, y'all. Y'all gotta forgive me, like, if I'm not being totally politically correct with this. But I mean, with two men in a relationship, in fact, I learned that domestic abuse, intimate partner violence, is more prevalent in same-sex relationships than it is in cisgender sex relationships. Apparently, according to many reports, intimate partner violence runs rampant in 29% of same-sex relationships. And that's considerably more than the amount that it is in cisgender relationships. Does that mean that, you know, well, it's because they are same sex? No, honestly, based on my research, I'm going to say based on my research, there's not a whole lot of study on this, but I really think it's because of the law enforcement. Because there's this question, well, if it's two women and it's just two women fighting, not necessarily one woman hitting on another woman, it's just two women fighting. Same for men. Oh, it's just two men fighting. So they handle it differently because it's a same-sex relationship, which then perpetuates its prevalence in same-sex relationships. So that was, Pen Bar, you got me a little off on the side, but I hope I answered your question. And I saw more questions coming up. DV by anyone in any sex relationship is wrong. Keep your hands to yourself. Yes, I agree. Men in DV situations don't speak out enough. That is true. Right? Because culturally, the man is looked at as the one who's supposed to be stronger. There was this, I don't know if you guys saw it, if y'all saw it a little while ago, a meme going around. And it was a joke. It was considered a joke. I was disturbed by it. Of this woman, very attractive, you know, she has short cropped hair, and her man got in the car. He must have went to his friend's house or something, and she asked him, like, how did it go? And he was like, fine. And she was like, well, what's so-and-so there? And he was like, well, and she pulled out a gun and put it to his head. and was like, "What so and so?" And everybody's and people who are, it's like laughing. All in the comments were just laughing. And then of course he got scared, and the whole joke was, well, once she put the gun away, she was back to normal and being sweet and sexy and stuff. And this was just a theme of the series of videos, of Instagram videos from a comedian. And I'm like, everybody's laughing, but this is, you all are laughing at intimate partner abuse just because it's this woman who looks very feminine and she's cute and she's sexy. She pulled out a gun to this dude's head and got him to say or respond how she wanted him to respond. Now somebody make a joke and that was reversed, and it was a man pulling out a gun on a woman. Oh yeah, no. It would have been taken down by Instagram. It would have been taken down by Instagram, but this wasn't, because it was a woman doing it to a man. So there's just a lot of perspectives that I think need to be adjusted and altered. So let's go back to the questions. In fact, guys, so I shared partial my story. I went into it. So yes, feel free to ask me questions. We got 15 minutes left. Where's Krishna? I was going to share Krishna with y'all because he has been extremely noisy. Krishna. But I don't see him. So somebody satisfied him. Boys, then men. What'd you say, manifested? Okay, I think I got it. I got all the questions. Okay. Tennille, your book cleared up many questions that I had. It's a great read. Finished in like 2 hours. Highly recommend it. Really? 2 hours? You finished it in 2 hours? I saw somebody posted a review on Amazon and they said they read it in 1 day, but 2 hours? Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Thank you. Is that my kid or cat? Okay, I got that. I mean, can't wait to see this study. I know, right? I know. It's interesting. Like when you get into it, and I really wonder. A lot of people ask me, was my father molested? No, I did not. I do want to clear that up. I have not visited him in prison. I've seen a lot of people say, one, under some of my YouTube videos, but also over on my TikTok videos. Belize, honey, you read it in 1 day? Wow. Okay, you're a speed reader. All right, I like that. People saying that I went to see him. No, I have not been in contact with him at all. I have not seen him. It's a plan to do it, which from what I hear is kind of, there's some challenges that I'm probably going to run into. So once I do, trust me, once I do start preparing the process, you all will know about it. You will know about it. There'll probably be some videos on it, me talking about it. I probably got to talk to my therapist about, through the process and stuff. I'll let y'all know how that goes. But I think it's important for me to do it. I'm very inquisitive. I'm a Virgo. Not sure if that has anything to do with it, but I analyze everything. And I find, even through my meditations, that when I have the information and I meditate on the information, I tend to process and find answers, which also leads to more questions. But I really enjoy that process, and especially if I could take what I have learned and apply it to solving a problem. And I feel like I've had the schooling, I've done the studies, I've done the self-work, I've done the spiritual work. Well, the self-work and the spiritual work kind of is never ending as long as I am here living on planet Earth. But I think that I have enough now. I need to speak with the offenders. And Aswad Ayinde seems to be an obvious choice. Now, some people have shown some concern on how it's going to impact me. And no, I can't tell the future. And I am sure, just like even sometimes talking to my mother brings up some stuff, or, meditation will bring up some memory that I had kind of got jumbled, mixed up with other things. I am not going to lie to myself. There is that possibility that I may have a response that I just can't predict. But I know me, I know him, and if there has been no rehabilitation, I suspect that he is the same sick, demented, narcissistic person, but maybe with some more anger and bitterness because he's sitting in jail right now. So I'm going to prepare for all of that. I have to. I'm going to prepare for all of that mentally, and even formulating questions to ask or starting a conversation to get him to answer certain questions. I think that's just this journalistic side of me. I thought I saw Krishna. Krishna, people are asking, are you a human? Shh, I didn't tell them that you are. Krishna, come here. Come here. See how he responds, guys? I swear he knows how to speak English. Krishna. So I'm going to do that. I want to do that and see what I get. And you know what? If he is totally resistant and doesn't want to cooperate, I'm okay with that. Then I will just have the warden or whoever it is I need to talk to find me somebody else. Has any of his family, like his mom, been to see him in prison? From what I hear, his brother has. Other than that, I don't really communicate with them. So I don't know if anyone else has. I'm pretty sure his mom, I don't doubt that his mom would go and see him, because apparently she still had doubts that he did the things that he was accused and convicted of doing. And I had to be like, you know, at the time I still called her grandma. At the time I'm like, but grandma, my kids? Like, what did you think? And my grandmother, my mom called my grandmother when my father would abuse my mom. I remember her being on the phone with my grandmother, crying, black eye, just complaining about how he won't stop and how he did it again and how he brought this woman home. And my grandmother would be on the other end like, well, don't piss him off. That was her perspective. Like, you'll be all right as long as you don't piss him off. So, you know, they say that only a mother could love something or someone like that. And that's what it was. So when we went to court, yeah, she said to me, like, I don't know what y'all saying is true. You know, she sat on his side. She was like, I don't know. She was defending her son to the end. And I have something because I've spoken to my sons. And as a parent, I think two things that I was most concerned about my kids, two things, is that they don't die and they don't kill anyone. And I tell my boys, I'm very, very clear with them on what consent is. And even for my son who's underage, I'm like, look, sexting, if you are a minor, that is considered child pornography. So we have open conversation and dialogue about that. And I'm just like, with my oldest son, if you have to get whatever little stuff that you be doing in writing, do that. Like, just do that. Consent. This is what consent is. It's very clear. Consent is not the absence of no. It is the presence of yes.
Text it to me.
He's in so he knows. He knows.
Yell out.
Wow. And
I'm out here doing my job. What you doing?
Exact. Thank you, believe. Yes, period. So they know. They know. So there's no gray. They know, look, do not allow any gray area. And I kind of lost my frame of thought why I even brought that point up. So, oh yes. So yeah, so I had to make sure because I'm like, as a mom, like looking at my grandmother, I had to think, wow, if that was my son up there being charged with all this stuff, what would I do? What would I say? Like, would I completely cut him off? I had to ask myself that. And I think for me, that was then another just process of leading up to the point of even forgiving her, because I clearly remember her telling my mom, I remember then she would come over and visit and they'd be in the kitchen talking. And yeah, her whole thing was just like, well, don't piss him off. Don't piss it off. She didn't know that he was also a pedophile, but she knew very much about the domestic violence. Interestingly enough, she wasn't married. I don't know if she experienced those things, but she's Southern. My paternal family are Southern. They're from Alabama, they're from Florida, and I think the connection to things like corporal punishment or just some of the generational trauma from being descendants of enslaved people and from being enslaved people just leaked down, and just what their culture, what they accepted, what they thought was right and wrong. And domestic violence was just something that you don't go and tell on your husband about him beating you. You just don't act up. That was literally their theory. Now, and just like I said, my grandmother was not married, but I don't know what her experiences with the men in her life were. I remember going to my family in Alabama to the farm. There was a huge family farm down there. And yeah, it's really old fashioned. Like their structure is really old fashioned. The men are the leaders and the women do what the men say. That's pretty much what it is. And that is what the perspective of my father was. But the men were also the breadwinners. So my father always had this sense of like, well, you know, he was responsible for bringing in income and things like that. But again, that has nothing to do with him being a pedophile. Let's see. Any more questions? Guys, we got 3 minutes left. My cat does the same thing, only wants attention. Yeah, the older generation allowed, they allowed so much mistreatment, but to a certain degree, it was normalized. It was normalized. I do think, first of all, intimate partner abuse and child abuse and child sexual abuse all exists in all cultures, in all races. It's just handled in different ways. I think that how it is approached, how it's looked at. I mean, look at the prevalence of it in the Catholic Church. It's really ridiculous. It's sickening. And I don't think that there is any better or worse if it's a family member or it's a priest or it's your doctor. Like either one is a terrible situation in its own right, but the way it is approached, the way it is talked about, the way survivors are treated, I do think there are some variations there when it comes to exposing it and the healing process and things like that. So now that I have said that, in Black communities and Black Southern communities, first of all, we know abuse in general, especially child abuse and kids being beaten with switches and all kinds of stuff, that was normalized. And I do think that is connected to the generational trauma and how we were treated as enslaved people in America. I think that it's associated. And then our desire to want to live up to the white standard. So what I call being Black in America, how to be Black in America, us trying to achieve like this comfortable area of being Black in America, then of course leads us as a people to want to hide any weaknesses or issues that we have. So a lot of stuff got brushed under the rug. because we didn't want our families, our elders at the time that they were going through that did not want to be associated with that kind of shame, because they was already dealing with other stuff that they had to get over and had to be demeaned over and looked down upon on. So now it's like, oh, there's just this whole other thing. Now I think it might have been different if they knew and understand that, you know, white people were doing the same thing. They were committing those kind of crimes as well. They were taking advantage, because I don't know if you all know this, but how do I put this? The criminalization of sexual abuse of children is new. It's new. And the seriousness, it being taken seriously, is new. And we owe all of that up to Freud, because when Freud was going through his process and developing his theory, Sigmund Freud, the quote unquote one of the founding fathers of psychology, and he was interviewing children and women and men, many children were reporting being sexually abused. When he started sharing those reports with the medical community that he was so determined to be a part of, because there was an argument that psychology was not a real thing, because it could not be proven, it didn't hold up to scientific standards, the medical community shunned him. His peers shunned him. And that's when he changed his theories to things like the Oedipus complex and the Electra's complex, and said that, no, well, by the way, oh yeah, remember when I said that these children was reporting sexual abuse? What had happened was they were obsessed with their parents. And this is actually a part of human mind development. And yeah, and they were fantasizing. So that then carried on through the generations, this false idea, this essentially this excuse for Sigmund Freud to get the popularity that he was chasing, cause now for the reports of sexual abuse that children was making to not be taken seriously. It wasn't taken seriously because it was considered fanciful for a long time, either fanciful or revenge for a long time. And it wasn't until the late 70s and early 80s that then it started being looked at again, and perspectives were changed, and it was considered a serious issue. It started to become a serious issue. So I do want to do a more deep dive video on that. I would like to, because it's really fascinating how the thinking of a society can just have such a negative impact on its ability to grow. Like, because someone who is considered an authority figure put this idea out for his own personal gains, essentially, right? Because it turned out a lot of the children that he was studying were the children of his friends, were the children of the very same doctors that he was looking for approval from. So then when he started reporting this stuff, it was bringing light to these jokers, and it became an issue. So they said, hey, you know what? Let's discredit him. And then he said, oh, shoot, well, by the way, that's not what it was. It was this other thing. So it's really, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And now we have to spend so much time just changing the way this is handled. I mean, I do think that we are at a turning point as a society and how it is dealt with, and raising awareness about it and being educated on it and doing more work to preventing it from happening to other people. So, but y'all got what for last call for a question. Yes, we need to educate each other and pass on. Y'all writing whole books up here. Like, YouTube won't let me get to read it. Let's see. Have you separated yourself from his family? You said his mom. So is his mom, or do you see his mom as your grandmother?
No.
I think I go, Pen Bar asked if I see his mom. Wait, are y'all talking to me?
No, I was responding. I said we don't know them.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't know them. We don't. And people, okay, so I do want to say this, and I'm gonna, for any of you y'all who want to follow me, I'm gonna move over to TikTok in a few. Once I finish here, I wet my whistle a little bit because talking makes my throat dry, so I'm gonna drink some water and pull out some ingredients and go TikTok live while I make some, what did I say, chocolate souffles?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to experiment with some chocolate souffles. I think that's what I'm going to do because I feel a little tired. I do interchange with how I address those who contributed to the trauma that I suffered. So let's say my grandmother. Now, because out of respect for her, and I still hold a sense of, I guess you can say, fondness for the positive role that she played in my life. I mean, I loved my grandmother. I loved going over to to her house. I was really saddened, both my grandmothers, when my father stopped allowing us to talk to either of my grandmothers. And the fact that he still maintained communication, and my mom had communication with his mom, it broke my heart that we wasn't allowed to have that same communication. I wasn't. And of course I wasn't, because of his fear that then I would report what he was doing. Yeah, I have very fond memories of that woman. At the same time, when she said that to me in court, that broke my heart. I was just like, oh my gosh, but grandma. I was like, but grandma. Like, how could you say that? And even now I think about it. Oh, okay, see, y'all got me going. So I do have my maternal grandmother, who I am in total communication with. And yeah, I love them both. I do. Unfortunately, whatever my grandmother did or didn't do, she did not know what was happening to the extent of the child abuse. She didn't know that. I mean, she did know that he beat us. She did know that because my mom would report to her stuff like that, but my mom didn't report sexual abuse to her. So I know she was ignorant when it came to that aspect. But you'll hear me interchange just because I have disconnected enough that I acknowledge the roles that she played, and you'll hear me call her his mom. Well, one, when I'm trying to establish which grandmother I'm talking about, but also when I'm describing what she is doing, when I'm describing an action or story or a situation where she is associated to him. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's my way. Well, I know that that's my way of just defining who she is and what role she played. So even when I say my father, people say, well, how can you call him your father? Well, first, I don't believe that others who have not experienced the things that people who have survived child abuse or abuse in general, especially during their formative years, should dictate how you address the abuser, unless it is inhibiting their ability to heal or just grow and progress as a human. So I do say my father because it's reality. It is reality. And that reality is what makes what he did so bad and so horrible. Because the fact of the matter is, if it was a stranger or it was somebody that is not invested in the actual development of this person, Yes, all child abuse is bad. Yes, all child molestation is bad. But a parent doing it compared to, the neighbor doing it is definitely worse. It is definitely worse. So I have to acknowledge, and I will continue to acknowledge his role in my life. And his role in my life was my father. Is he in that role now to me, mentally and emotionally? No. No, he's not. I don't have a father. But I have a right to acknowledge the fact that that is the role that he played in my life. So, so when I say my dad, and again, it will pertain to maybe a specific situation. I can reminisce on the time before any of the abuse started that I loved him and he was my hero. And I remember the smell of his wool hat on the top of his head as I slept while he had me sitting on his shoulders. And I was like 3 years old walking back from the park. Like all of those things, there are some positive things. And a lot of my drive as an entrepreneur, I pulled from my experience with him because he was an entrepreneur. And I can acknowledge that. And I'm good with it. I'm good with it. So you won't hear me calling him daddy. That's one thing. My father, my dad, Aswada Yinde, Damien. I would call him Damien because that's a name that we use to address him, or when we talk about him often, both me and my children and my siblings and my mom actually will call him Damien because Damien was a son of Satan in a film called The Omen. So that's actually what we relate to him more. But when I do videos, I don't use that name because it can be confusing. People don't know him as Damien. That's like an inside thing. So yeah. Anyway, that's a lot of people on the outside trying to look in. Guys, y'all, my mouth is so dry. Okay, good evening, everyone. I feel the love here tonight, and that's awesome. I hope everyone learned something. I certainly did. Bless you, Aziza. Thank you so much. Thank you, my dear. Thank you, Tanil. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And we actually have some clients that we are helping through the holidays now, so they will appreciate it. I will say thank you on their behalf. But the last thing I do want to say, Tanil, let's see, Gail, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about the situation. It's really hard for a person who went through this to open up. Thank you, Queen. Have a good evening. Have a nice evening. Have a nice evening to you too, Gail. You're probably gone. Wow, that Freud crowd was part of a child development and nursing school. Yeah. Yeah, now I do subscribe a lot to Freud's other theories. I think most of Adler, Carl Jung, like a lot of them were just looking at the development of the human mind from different perspectives, and honestly from their own perspectives, because they did a lot of self-study first before they even started analyzing other people through dreams and all kinds of stuff. But they're all looking at the same tree from a different angle when it comes down to it. So I think all of them have some truth, but it's when their own personal crap got involved and became more important that I think it kind of infected the work somewhat. So you just have to be mindful, and that's really of anything that you learn from anywhere. Cross-reference, be one with your own truth and your own sense of, what is right with the universe. I think we all have that ability. We all have that connection to God where when you hear the truth, you feel it. That's my theory. But on that note, so Tanil mentioned donating. Yes, please do. We do have a couple of families that we are working with. Precious Little Ladies is the name of the organization. It is a 501c3. All donations are completely tax deductible. So just when you're filing your taxes for 2022, if you have for 2020, 2021 taxes. If you have made a donation to PLL nonprofit, then just use that receipt that you get. We take donations through PayPal, through donor box. Just go to the website, and we have families right now that we are helping with the holidays, women who have been victimized either as a child or their own children. They're going through, a tough time because they just learned that their children were being abused, or they have suffered some form of intimate partner violence and they're in the process of escaping. We are collecting donations so that we could donate food and toys and clothes to these families. So your help would be awesome. It would be awesome and much appreciated. So Tanil, thank you so much for letting us know that you will be contributing. All right. So yeah, that is it for tonight. Any last thoughts? Let's see. Thank you for speaking and supporting those that are in the middle of healing. Please stay safe and blessed. I will be in touch. Yes. Selena, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in, for sticking around for the whole thing. And if you are so inclined, I think the kids are going to jump on a TikTok. They like that because we get people like coming in and asking questions, and Arish goes in. So yeah, be blessed. Thank you, everyone. If I don't see you before the holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate, I hope you have a great, loving, enjoyable, and enlightening one. All right? Be blessed, for you are a blessing. Bye. Oh, harmless, honest. What? Oh, that's not going to be until later 2022. I'm still working on it. Yeah, the next one is dropping in, I believe, July 2022, if all goes well. Hopefully, if I don't get, any kind of other thwarting or anything like that. So, all right, that's it for real, y'all now. Bye.